And we are officially live. Good morning again, everybody in the Zoom. As always, if you're feeling up to it, you can open up that mic and hit me with a big old good morning at the top of your lungs. And then everybody else inside of chat, you guys go ahead and type up a big old good morning. I want to know who is ready to rock and roll today, who is inside of chat, and who is ready to make it happen. So again, hit me with a big old good morning. And if you're in Zoom and you feel up to it, the floor is yours. Open the mic and start screaming.
Good morning.
That's what I'm talking about. We're going to let Julie start doing the good mornings from now on because they're 10 times better than mine, guys.
Howdy.
Howdy ho, howdy ho. What's up, Trucker Ed? Good morning, man. And then
Baba Booey, Baba Booey.
Baba Booey, Baba Booey. What's up with Yui? Good morning, Steve, Angel, Patrick, Catherine. What's up? Good morning, Chelsea, Jonathan, and everybody else inside of chat. Happy Friday, guys. We're going to dive right into it. It's 9:06. We got about 6 minutes to catch up on here, and we got a few things to talk about today, guys. And I want to make sure I have some time to take a look at your stocks as well. So, as always, go ahead and get those posted up in the Market Mastery room. Just throw those tickers up. I know that you want them reviewed, and before market open, we will have some time to take a look at those. And then if you have a basic membership and you are just tuning into the pre-market rundown, go ahead and type up your tickers in the trade floor. And again, before 9:30, I will try to get to those, review those, and help you guys get prepared.
I don't want to cut you off, but I don't think they can hear you.
What do you mean?
Steve M posted up no Zoom audio on the stream.
Oh, man. I mean, on my end, it sounds like it's coming through fine. You guys got me in Zoom, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we have you in Zoom. I don't think we have you in the chat.
Let's see real quick.
I don't want you to go through the whole rundown and then be like,
oh yeah. No,
time to do it again.
I appreciate it.
Patrick can hear.
I can hear it. Let me go check the rundown real quick. Mic check, mic
Spencer
check.
can hear.
Yep, it's working on my end, so I can hear myself through the stream on both sessions. So, all right, cool. They're not getting the Zoom. Yeah, you don't get the Zoom right this second. Yeah, for the rundown, it's not being pumped through, to say the least. But yeah, that'll change in a moment. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive into it, guys. Let's talk about what we got going on today. As always, starting with the economic calendar and checking out what's on the calendar for today and some times that we got to be mindful of, guys. So, the only thing that we have to be mindful of today is going to be Michigan consumer sentiment data that's being released here at 10 o'clock. And that is the type of data that we've seen really move the market. So be very, very mindful that we got some really important data set to be released here at 10 o'clock this morning. Other than that, we are in the clear for today. So you don't forget, just go grab like a vertical line and then go throw that up at 10 o'clock on your chart. You know, for me, I always do it with the SPY and the Qs because I'm always consistently looking at the SPY and the Qs throughout the day. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a vertical line, throw it up on the Qs at 10 o'clock, and then do the same thing here with the SPY at 10 o'clock, just so I don't forget, like I did the other day, that we got data being dropped here at 10. All right, guys. But let's go ahead and break down the SPY. Let's talk about what we got going on for today. And let's take this time to really get you guys prepared. And so this morning, you know, just really having a tough, difficult time finding like super significant key zones, right? Yesterday was a pretty simple day as we're getting this drop down into these zones. But then as of yesterday's movement, we don't really have a lot to go off of. And then we're starting to gap up a little bit today. So again, I don't really see a lot of key significant zones that really stand out to me today that are close to the current price. So with that being said, today's going to be a day of patience, right? There's only like two things that I see to start the day, and we'll really just have to go from there. The first area that I want to keep on watch here for today is going to be this zone between 539.85 to 540.28. After we gapped up here in June, we had 3 days where we pulled back and we held that level of support and then proceeded to make new all-time highs. As we were coming back down into that region here on Wednesday, we did hit it as a low of day, and we did see a nice little pop and a nice decent little reaction. And then even yesterday, you see good price development off that zone where we came down into it, bounced to support, fell below it, snapped back above it, regained it as support with a higher low, and then pushed from there just to come back down into that zone near the end of day, and we saw a nice bounce and a big strong reaction out of that zone. So it's not the best zone, the most significant zone, but it is an area that I see that really stands out. Then when we drill that down into a 5-minute time frame, we could see over the past couple of days just how well that zone had been respected. So with that being said, I'm going to label this as my line in the sand because it's going to be the nearest level of support that we have respected the last couple of days. And we could see that it's a valid level here from the daily as well. And so that's going to be a make or break for me. So if we come down into that zone and we see it hold a support again, I would be interested in playing the SPY long today. But if we ever got back below that zone and we started trading below it as resistance, I would want to start thinking about getting short. Where to? Back down into yesterday's low of day, right? That's going to put you at 537.50. So game plan number one for me is, hey, do we see the SPY getting back below that zone? Do we push back up and retest it and hold below it as resistance, right around this 540 region? If so, I would be interested in getting short back down into yesterday's low of day of 537.50. But if we come down into that zone and we see it holding as good support, like we saw a couple times yesterday, I would be interested in getting long here on the SPY. Where to? Well, our first main key level on the daily is going to be this gap level. So we do have this gap here up between 549.14 to 553.26. So my first main target would be the bottom end of that daily gap, which is right at 549.14. But it's not like we're going to go from 540 straight up to 549, right? There are going to be pit stops along the way up, areas where we should be looking to lock in some profit. So where are those levels going to be, right? I'm just going to go ahead and look at yesterday's levels. So the first area that I want to go ahead and mark up is going to be this area here, 543.67 as my first level of resistance, right? Up against pre-market highs. We go back and look. We had a lot of support around that level here on Wednesday, and we had a lot of support resistance around this level yesterday. So if we do come down into that line in the sand zone, we hold it to support, my first target would be that blue line at 543.67. Then where could we possibly go next? I would say up here towards around 545, right? We had a lot of resistance formed there Wednesday at that 545 level. And then again, as we cracked back below it yesterday, we retested it with a lower high before seeing that massive move to the downside. So next target would be right at that 545 region. Rinse and repeat. Where do I think it could then go next? Most likely back up to yesterday's high a day, right? Where's high a day? Right around 547.44. Then the bottom end of that daily gap, which is at 549.14. So that's going to be your long plan for today on the SPY. If we open on up, come down into this line in the sand, that key zone between 539.85 to 540.28, and we hold above it as support today, I would again be interested in playing the SPY long up to first target, 543.67, second target, 545, third target, 547.44, and then one of our final targets being the bottom end of that daily gap at 549.14. That's going to be the long plan for me today here on the SPY. And then again, we have our short plan in place as well. If we come down to that zone, we fall below it, stay below it, retest it as intraday resistance, I would simply look to get short on the SPY back down into yesterday's low of day. That's the game plan, and that's the analysis here on the SPY. All right. Other than that, let's go look at the Qs real quick, and kind of the same thing with the Qs. Again, yesterday we had a lot of key zones to be trading off of, right? Today, not really seeing a whole lot that stands out to me, but the one area that I like is going to be this zone right here on the Qs, between 461.84 to 462.54. So as we had that big impulsive move to the upside back here in June, we had 4 days where we just pulled back and we hit this zone, held it to support, hit the zone, held it to support, right? 4 times back to back, and then we ripped into new all-time highs. Then here on Wednesday, we came down to that level, we hit it as low a day, we bounced. When we drill down into our lower time frame, like we did with the SPY, we actually build a little more confidence and conviction in that zone, seeing how price actually moved around that zone yesterday multiple times, respecting it as areas of support and resistance. And we see that it's also a pretty valid zone here on the daily. So that's going to be my key zone that I want to be paying attention to today here on the Qs for those reasons. That's going to be my line in the sand, okay? From there, we have room back up to yesterday's high of day, this area of resistance between 467.96 to 468.14. Then from there, we're going to be looking at this gap to the upside. So the bottom end of this gap is at 474.25, and the top end of that daily gap is up at 480.13. All right, let's go ahead and drill back down into the Qs on the 5-minute. And then let's go ahead and just mark up a level at yesterday's low of day as well. So we have our line in the sand here, right? We can see that it is a pretty nice key zone from the daily that was respected multiple times yesterday. Pretty confident that we can definitely respect it and, you know, present an opportunity off of it today. And again, that zone is here at 461.84 to 462.57. So what's game plan number one? It's the same game plan that we have with the SPY. If we open above the zone and hold this zone as key intraday support, I would be looking to get long on the Qs. Where to? First target, yesterday's high a day. Then second target would be up at the bottom end of that daily gap at 474.25. Okay? Same thing with the SPY applies to the Qs. If the Qs come down below that zone of support, just to come up and back test it and stay below it as intraday resistance, from there, I would look to get short back down into yesterday's low of day here on the Qs. And not just yesterday's low day, like first target would be yesterday's close. And then our second final target would be back down right up against yesterday's low of day. So it's the same plan we have with the SPY, right? Really just looking for one of those two opportunities to present themselves off those lines in the sand, those key levels of support. And again, same thing applies with the Qs here. But the Qs look a little bit better because QQQ is going to be opening right at that zone when market opens on up. Okay, so I want to be definitely focused more on the Qs than the SPY because we're going to be opening right at that zone, and we could absolutely see some kind of opportunity presenting itself right at 9:30, guys. Right, so that's what I have for today on the SPY and the Qs. After taking a look at both of those, that's where I came to the conclusion that I want to put most of my focus on the Qs right at the start of the day. And that key zone that I'm paying close attention to is between 461.84 to 462.57. Right? Something's bound to happen off that level. One of three things. Number one, we never touch it and it doesn't do anything off that zone. Never provides us with an opportunity. That's number one. Number two, we hold it as support, we get long. Number three, we fall below it, ideally retested as resistance, we get short. Something's bound to happen off that zone. All right, so let's keep that on watch here on QQQ. Other than that, I will be watching good old Tesla today. All right, so Tesla, we got this gap here between 225.95, and I'm going to stop the top end of my gap up here off this low of day from July 12th. That's at 233. Now, the gap truly is way up here at 245.76, and that is going to be a target here on Tesla if I decide to leave a runner on Tesla to truly come up and fill that daily gap. But I want to bring the top end of my gap down here to that low of day where I truly don't see any trading activity. And that's going to be a very realistic first target. So if we get above 226 today on Tesla and we get inside of this gap and we stay inside of this gap, holding above that 226 level as support, I would be interested in playing Tesla long up to 233. That's a nice 7-point potential move to the upside. I'm cool with that. Right, so possible gap fill long opportunity today on Tesla. It's very simple. Wait for Tesla to break above 226. Let it pull back and retest 226 as intraday support. And if that's what you see take place, you could look to get long up to the top end of that gap at 233. And you could safely put stop losses just right below that 226 level. You could literally get away with $1 of risk on this if it sets up properly. And again, you have potential to make upwards of $7 to the upside. That is a great setup if it presents itself. So let's keep Tesla on high watch for today for a possible gap fill long. And then lastly, the Goog, G-O-O-G. I mean, we have just been absolutely falling off a cliff right, these last few days. After earnings, we've just been dumping. I mean, this thing is down quite a bit the last few days. And so the way I'm looking at it is maybe another continuation move to the downside. Maybe we get another leg down today and we continue to see momentum follow through and we have a continuation move on down. Kind of like what we saw yesterday. Gap down off earnings, right? Then we opened right at the previous day's close. We couldn't break the previous day's open, and then we saw the continuation move on down here on GOOG. I'm curious to see, hey, are we going to see another continuation move on down today? And if so, where would I want to get short and where would my target be? So I'm just going to go ahead and mark up yesterday's low of day and yesterday's close and mark that as my line in the sand because that's going to be the make or break here on GOOG, right? If we are trading below yesterday's low of day and close and we cannot get above it and we're stuck below it as resistance, very, very possible that we see sellers continue to step on in and this momentum follow through and we continue to fade and fall to the downside. And how much lower do I think we could be going here on GOOG if we get that continuation move today? Well, we have this big daily gap that at some point could be getting filled here on Goog, right? And that gap is down here between 161.70 to 164.50. So my plan here on GOOG today is looking at that 169.05 to 169.16 zone. Yesterday's low of day and close. If we get a strong crack below that zone and we put in a lower high at it or below it and we see that there's potential for the next leg down intraday, I want to be looking to get short to play that daily continuation on down. Where's my first target going to be? The top end of that daily gap at 164.50. Where's my final target going to be? The bottom end of that daily gap at 161.70. Okay, so definitely want to keep this on watch to see, are we going to get that continuation drop on off? Do we have opportunity to get short down to that 164.50 today here on GOOG. So let's keep that on watch. I like Tesla so much better. So Tesla definitely taking priority. Most of my focus going on the Qs here right at the start of the day. We got our plans built, and you guys are all set, ready to rock here on the SPY as well. All right, let's go see what stocks that you want to have reviewed this morning. Do we have anything? No stocks in particular to take a look at. If you guys have anything, just open your mic in the Zoom. Let me know. We'll take a look at it. But Jonathan is asking, is there a reason we wouldn't still like the 542.50 to 543 zone? Let's go look at the SPY. I assume you're discussing SPY here. And I'm just going to throw that zone up that you gave me. Let me remove all these blue lines. It's a little cluttered. I don't like it. There we go. So you're looking at a zone between 542.50. So let's go grab 542.50 up to 543. Okay. Let's go into the daily. And let's see where that zone is on the daily. Right up against those lows. So is that an area to watch for today? It is. Right? 100%. It's just we hit that level so many times yesterday that I don't really want to get long or short off that level, for example. But is that a profit-taking level? Absolutely. Is that an area that we can get above and continue higher off of? Absolutely. And so that zone that you have is a valid zone, Jonathan, 100%. What I did, instead of marking up that zone, what did I do? I marked up my profit-taking levels, right? And right around that zone that you had. So I wouldn't necessarily want to be trading off that zone, right? Because again, we hit it so many times the last couple of days. It's more or less an area where I would look to take profit. In an area that I think, hey, if we get above it and hold above it, that could lead to some upside continuation. But that's not a insignificant zone. It's not a zone that's not valid. So yeah, 100%, man. If you see that zone and you like that zone, you're confident, convicted with it, and you see an opportunity presenting itself off that key zone, absolutely. It definitely has multiple points in it. We definitely see how it was respected over the past couple of days. I'm just going to utilize it slightly different today. Not looking to trade off of it, for example, but utilizing those areas as areas where I want to be looking to take profit. My main level that I'm watching is that line in the sand zone here on the SPY. I'm more confident to take trades off that zone, being an area where I think, hey, this could be a make or break. This zone's going to be the deciding factor on, hey, do we hold it? Do we see more upside? Or, hey, do we get below it, stay below it, and see more downside? That's an area that I believe I want to keep on higher watch because I think something's bound to happen off that zone compared to the 542.50 to 543. But again, want to stress, not invalid. I just want to use it slightly different. And again, why I'm prioritizing this lower zone compared to that zone that you were discussing. But it's not incorrect. It's a valid zone. Definitely keep it on watch, man. But I'm still going to remove those blue lines because it's just getting a little messy here. But that is definitely going to be an area of resistance, brother man. And that was our first target here on the SPY. It was up right around those pre-market highs. And again, you had a lot of resistance for them there yesterday as well.
I have a question, Josh.
What's up, man?
On SPY, I know it didn't came to the penny to hit that gap fill rejection. I think it was what, maybe 30, 40 cents off. This is still considered valid or not yet? I mean, it's already treated as filled.
So, I mean, we got really close, right? I mean, the way I look at it is if it was within like 10 cents, I would say, you know what, it's probably filled. It was within like 50 cents. So is that still an area that I would keep on watch for today if we get there? Like, would I throw a zone right here and connect that high a day from June 7th and then connect the high a day prior to the gap up as another lower level of support if we fall below yesterday's low of day? Absolutely. And could we come down into that lower level of support, right, where that gap was and see a bounce? Yeah, we could still see a gap fill bounce for sure. So the way I look at it is if it was within 10 cents, I would say it's filled. I'm not really looking for a gap fill bounce. We were within 50 cents, right? So I still don't look at that as being truly filled. And we could still technically come down to that level and hold it as support. It was prior resistance. It's the bottom end of this gap prior to the gap up. I still think this could be a good area, of strong support today. Here on the SPY down between 536.90 to like 537.04 if we get below yesterday's low of day. I would still be watching that level to see if we have an opportunity set up off of it to play it long.
Okay, thanks.
What does what do you mean by it's been filled so it's not something we worry about?
Yeah, 100%. So let's go find an example of a gap that got filled. Because when we have gaps like to get filled, and we could see gap fill bounces and other various strategies around gap fills. But once the gap is filled, we no longer want to really be paying attention to it, essentially. So let's take this gap right here, for example. Okay, so here from June 20th to June 21st, we gapped down, correct? We see a gap down here. The very next day on June 24th, we came up, we filled that gap, and we saw a gap fill rejection. So this gap has officially been filled. It filled right here on June 24th off that high a day. And once that gap got filled, we saw the rejection. These are tradable setups, right? That would be a gap fill rejection. So this gap would be filled. The next time it comes back up to that gap, say here, would we be looking for a similar trade? As far as a gap fill rejection, we would not. Why? Because the gap has already previously been filled. That gap level is no longer going to be valid for us to trade off of.
Okay.
So
I didn't understand what you were saying. And then when you said the gap fill, I was like, oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and so that's what he's talking about is we have this gap here, right, on the SPY. We can see that we have this big gap right here. And so you see how we were filling it yesterday, right? Did we come all the way to the exact bottom and fill it at the bottom? We did not. So this gap, technically speaking, has yet to be truly filled. It got pretty dang close, within 50 cents. But it's still 50 cents that we can move to the downside, truly fill that gap, and see a gap fill bounce opportunity. Now, if this would have come down within, say, 10 cents of the lower end of the gap and then bounced, would I count that as a filled gap? I would, because it's within a such small window of price, 10 cents. I'm going to count that as filled, in my opinion, for me. But 50 cents, I still think there's room to come down, fill the gap, and see some kind of a reaction. So I don't count this as filling the gap unless it was within like a 10-cent window. So that's what we were discussing there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But market is open. We are live. And we're going to crush it today, guys. We're going to have some fun, baby. Let's do it. Now it's time to grab some hedgies. Hedgy pressure. Cool. As long as that makes sense. And that's the one thing I want to, really discuss about, finding zones. Like areas of support resistance that I find are different than Corey, than Stir, than anybody else. What it really comes down to is just having the skill set to identify key significant zones in the first place, right? And then starting to look at all of these zones that you identified and then ask yourself which ones are the most significant on a scale of 1 to 10. Which ones are the most significant compared to others, right? And we talked about this yesterday, like going through and prioritizing those zones. And the ones that are the most significant, those are going to be the ones that you're the most confident in trading off of. If the stock gets to your zone that you're really confident in, and you see an intraday setup taking place off that zone, you're going to be confident to take that trade. And that zone could be a zone that I don't have, that Corey doesn't have, right? But as long as you identify that zone, and it's a key zone based on your skill set, number one. Number two, you assess the significance of the zone, and it is significant, you're going to be confident and convicted that something's going to happen off your zone for the day. And then from there, it's just, hey, do you see any kind of opportunity presenting itself off that zone? That's all that matters. Your zone could be 50 cents off from mine. It could still be valid. You could still see a setup take place off of it. You could trade it, make money. And I wouldn't, right? Just like I would take a trade off one of my zones if I see a setup and maybe make some money. You wouldn't. But again, as long as those, parameters, that criteria is met, and you go through and you follow that process, and you build confidence and conviction in these zones, in these levels, in your analysis, right? That's going to help you identify your setups off these zones. And again, be confident and convicted to take those when those take place.
It's like something I have. Go ahead.
I was going to say the last thing I wanted to add to that, when you're identifying these zones and you're identifying potential places to enter a trade, make sure that there's enough reward to the risk that you're taking at that zone as well.
Mhm.
Like some accounts, you're not able to weather a particular move on a stock because it requires too much risk to reward.
Weekly hedge pressure today on the SPY is going to be 541.50. And then monthly is at 535. Go grab QQQ. Let's see what we got on the Qs. We got a 463 weekly hedge. And we got a 467.50 monthly hedge, which is up against yesterday's highs. So I would be looking for a long here inside of that zone of support on the Qs, but the only thing I'm not crazy about is we're below hedge pressure. That's it. We're below hedge. That's going to be a pretty strong barrier of resistance. And again, I just don't feel confident getting in here and only being, pretty limited up to hedge pressure as far as the target goes. So I'm going to be hands off inside of the zone on the Qs until we ideally push off that zone, get above hedge pressure, and then come back and stay above it. If we get that push off the zone above hedge pressure and then retest it as support, I would look to play that long up to monthly hedge if we were to see something like that play on out.
You said 541.50 for SPY?
I have a 541.50 for the SPY.
Opened, came right into that, bounced. I love it when they actually are on point to the penny like that.
Like to the freaking penny. Do I use dojis or reverse hammers? No, I don't use like candle formations like that, like dojis, as a part of my trading. I do not.
You need to cut me off, Josh. Go ahead. But like I had mentioned last week to someone that was in here, I said it's good to find your own zones as well. Not just copy everything that Josh is saying, because one day, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but what if one day Josh is not here, like he has recently due to baby? Guess what? What are we gonna do? Just, oh, well, Josh is not here. We didn't learn nothing. We didn't move the needle in our end, and therefore we won't be able to grow. And one member had mentioned that that's what he was doing previously, just going from what they were telling him, and he was making money. But then when they just shut off and they were no longer active, he lost all that money he made because he once again didn't know anything that what he did. He was just copy nutters.
Yeah, I mean,
So
some
it's good
people
to
go out there and catch the fish for you and feed you for the day. I want to teach you guys how to fish so you guys can eat for a lifetime. It's like I want you guys to acquire the skill set, right? And through these daily live streams and the fact that you guys show up and ask questions like Jonathan, that's how you guys are going to learn to acquire the skill set to essentially just be super confident in your ability to come in, identify great winning setups, and take them consistently. Like that's the goal. And so when it comes down to like the zones, yeah, in the beginning, right, you're going to need to follow along, right, with how you find your zones, how you do analysis, and even follow along and mirror trade. Like in the beginning on a paper account, like that's understandable to come through and just follow along. But then it gets to the point of now you got to put your foot in the water. You got to dip that toe in. You got to start to apply yourself and actually try on your own to start, again, simple things, finding the zones, identifying setups intraday, looking to take some trades, even if you're following along, just to, again, get some reps in. And the more you do that, the more confident you become, the more skilled you become. And that's really what it comes down to, is through your analysis, whatever you're doing, institutional supply demand, support resistance, if you're trading bull flags, bear flags, it doesn't matter. If at the end of the day, if you're super confident and convicted in your skill set and your ability to trade, and you have a rock solid bulletproof system that you can follow that generates consistent profits, that's really all that matters. And so I'm here to help you get to that point of, hey, I'm confident in what I'm doing, right? And just like the conversation with Jonathan, it's like, hey, he may have a different zone than mine, and that's okay. Right? If he's confident and convicted that something's probably going to happen off that zone that he identified, right? He's willing to watch for an opportunity to present itself off that zone. And I may not be. And that's the point of teaching you guys how to do this self-sufficiently on your own and not have to rely solely upon somebody else for your success. You have the skill set to do this on your own. And that's what we do on a daily basis. But yeah, man. And it clearly works, right? Like if you just follow that process, I mean, it clearly works. And I don't want to brag about Catherine too much and swell up the ego when she has none. But yeah, she's just doing amazing. It's like she's been here for 45 days. We had a conversation this week, and she's already taken like 20 some trades in her paper account. But that's where we start, is practicing in a paper account. And so she's taken 20 well thought out, legitimate trades that she's found her zones. She's waited for the market to get to a zone. Then she's actually trading off these zones and building plans, calculating the delta, putting stops in the system, doing everything proper. She has great results already. Just within the first 20 trades, great results, right? And that's a huge first step in the right direction to, again, do what? Become even more confident, like, hey, I know what the hell I'm doing, right? Which is going to allow you to seamlessly transition into that live account and just consistently replicate what you're doing and not change a thing. And before you know it, 45 days from now, she'll be 3 months into the market. 3 months from a brand new trader, 3 months in, I guarantee she's already to the point of scaling that winning system, right? 45 days in, she's getting ready to go to a live account because she's confident to do so because what she's doing works. And then before you know it, boom, now we're scaling to multiple $100 trades and multiple $100 days. And it didn't take that long to do it. But what does it come back down to? Just showing up, utilizing the material in the program, asking for help, just being here, right? Putting in a little bit of work on a daily basis and just doing that consistently every single day. In the moment, you probably don't feel like you're progressing all too much. But 45 days in, you look at where you're at and you compare it to where you were 45 days ago, night and day difference. But it's just the little actions you do every day in the moment that compound into substantial results where you can clearly see the progression. And so just show up, apply yourself. Ask questions, get into the material, take action, right? And if you just do that consistently on a daily basis, you will get that much closer to the goals that you guys have. Do we have anything setting up? No. Tesla, not anywhere close to getting above that 226. Goog, fading and falling here a little bit. SPY, stair-stepping its way on up. All the Qs is kind of stair-stepping its way on down. At first glance, nothing really standing out to me here, guys. Why is the stream in pre-market mode? Because Josh forgot to switch it, Steve. That would be why.